Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about language, history and change. Let's start with family trees. This term came into use to describe that common ancestors, Proto-Indo-European family, as we can see from this picture. There are many languages and sub-branches. For example, the Germanic languages sub-branches are English, Dutch, German, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, Afrikaans, like that. With Proto-Indo-European languages, trees established as a long ago great-great-grandmother scholars set out to identify the branches of Indo-European family tree. Like that. Indo-European and cognates. It is the language family with the largest population and distribution in the world, but it is not the only one. There are actually 7,097 known languages in the world. There are about 30 such language families containing a large number of different individual languages. All these diverse languages are related. For example, in Greek, in English, father, mother, brother, and Greek, Patris, Mitri, Adolphus. Cognates. It is a family connection between different languages. It is a word in other language that has a similar form and is used with a similar meaning. The English words mother, father, or friend are cognates of German words Mutter, Vater, and Freund. Let's move with comparative reconstruction. It is based on a comparison of forms between related languages rather than a comparison of forms within the same language. The goal of reconstruction is to recover as many aspects of ancestors' languages as possible. There are two major things. The majority principle is very straightforward. The most natural development is based on the fact that certain types of sound change are very common. For example, sound changes. Final vowels often disappear. 2. Voiceless sounds become voiced. 3. Stop become fricatives. 4. Consonants become voiceless at the end of the words, like that. Comparing cognates. It is about deciding what is the most likely form of the initial sound in the original source of all languages. But the written forms can mislead us. For example, let's think three languages: language A, language B, language C. This is a comparing cognates. Language A says sing, says cantare. Language B, cantar. Language C, chanter. But this is a word of sing. This is comparing cognate. What is comparing cognate? It is deciding what is the most likely form of the initial sound in the original language. Let's move with the history of English. To see how one language has undergone substantial changes through time, we need to take a brief look at the history of English, which is traditionally divided into 4 periods: Old English, Middle English, Early English, Modern English. Let's start with Old English. The primary sources for what developed as the English languages were the Germanic languages spoken by tribes of Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from Northern Europe. It is the names of the first two that we have the term Anglo-Saxons to describe these people, British people, and from the first trip that we got the word for their language, Anglisk, and their new home, Anglaland. From this early version of Anglisk, now called Old English, we have many of the most basic terms in the language: man, unf, chilt, hus, met. Met is food, man is man, uf is woman, child is child. Yes. In Old English period, there are many groups that came plunder and then settle in the parts of regions of Britain. We can say that Germans, French, Vikings, invaders came to England and plundered there. Yes. Let's move with Middle English. After the Norman French arrived England, they conquered the England and become the noble class and imposed their language. And we can say that after these things happened, the Middle English start. And this is known as Middle English period. I mean, the nobility, government, civilized life was French, but peasant remained English. The early modern English beginning around 1500 significantly different from earlier periods. The introduction of printing in 1476 brought about significant change. But because the printers tended to standardize existing pronunciation in the spelling of words, and we can see some changing in the languages. Let's move with sound changes. Sound loss, this is a term. Some sounds disappeared from the pronunciation of certain words. For example, what we can say, the initial age of many Old English words was lost. For example, lot. H sound disappeared and loud words came into exist. Metathesis. It is a sound change known as metathesis involves a reversal in the position of two sounds. For example, breathe transferred bird, rose transferred horse. Epenthesis. It involves the addition of a sound to the middle of word. For example, spinel, spindle, empty, empty, snore, thunder. Prothesis. It involves the addition of a sound to the beginning of the word. For example, shola, school, spiritus, espiritu, spirit, like that. Syntactic changes. Syntactic change is a type of natural language variation that refers to changes in the grammar of a language. This change can be caused or facilitated both by socio-cultural factors and by language internal factors. And we can say that there are differences between languages in terms of structure, such as old language and modern languages. For example, the subject could follow the verb, traveled he, and the object could be placed before the verb, he, him, saw. Or at the beginning of the sentence, him, man, not, gave. Like that. Modern English is an SVO languages. Syntactic changes permit less variation in word order. In modern English, negation is expressed by adding not or do not. We can also add never or not. For example, I go to school, I never go to school. I went, I did not go. Semantic changes. Semantic change is a change in one of the meanings of word. Every word has a variety of senses and connotations, which can be added, removed, or altered over time. The term semantic change refers to how the meaning of words change over time. There are 5 types of semantic changes, but we will focus on 2 of them: broadening, narrowing. Broadening. It's a word widen its meaning, such as picture, only painted, holiday, only religiously. Narrowing, words meaning become less generalized, in other words, more specific over time, such as meat. In the Old English, meat, we can use meat to widen its meaning. But when narrowing coming, we use meat only for food. We hunt only of dog. Diachronic and synchronic variations. Diachronic variation is the historical perspective of change through time. Synchronic variation is differences within language among different groups at the same time. Thank you for listening to me.